for being here today. My name is Rachel White. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the Deputy Director of Youth Advocacy at DC Action. Thank you. In my role, I work alongside young people, providers, and advocates to push for systems that don't just respond to crises, but actually prevent them from happening. Systems that are coordinated, adequately funded, and designed with young people at the center. Tonight is about accountability and clarity. We are here because the decisions made by elected officials directly shape whether young people in DC have stable housing, access to mental health care, meaningful job opportunities, and safe, affirming communities. We're also here at a critical moment. Tremendous funding gaps in youth homelessness services, mental health systems are stretched beyond capacity, and limited access to high-quality out-of-school time programs. It's not an abstract policy issue. These are lived experiences and lived realities for young people across every ward in this city. This forum is designed to focus on those realities and hear how candidates plan to respond. Tonight is not only about policy positions, it's about systems thinking. It's about whether candidates understand how housing, education, workforce development, healthcare, and public safety are interconnected for young people in the city. And importantly, it's about whether those systems are built to serve all young people, especially those who are most often pushed to the margins, including young people experiencing homelessness, parenting young people, LGBTQ+ youth, and young people navigating poverty and violence. I want to say thank you to the LGBTQ+ Budget Coalition, the Youth Economic Justice Coalition, the Out of School Time Coalition, Jubilee Housing, Washington Urban Debate League, Black Swan Academy, the DC Arts and Humanities Collaborative, the Youth Power and Safety Collaborative, the staff at DC Action, and the Festival Center for hosting us tonight. As a reminder, all candidates that have been invited to participate in the forum were required to meet certain criteria, including securing a place on the ballot and either be certified for the district's fair elections public financing program, or if privately financing their campaign, have an equal number of qualified contributions by the most recent campaign finance report. We are grateful to the candidates for being here today and engaging directly with these questions, and we're grateful to all of you for showing up and staying engaged in the work. With that, I'll now turn it over to my co-moderator, Ella Ross.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ella Ross, she, her, and I'm a junior at DC International. I'm also a young person who has seen firsthand how policy decisions show up in the daily lives of students, families, and communities across DC. For me, this forum is not just about political platforms, it's about whether adults in positions of power actually listen to young people and act on what we say we need. Younger people in DC are navigating a lot right now. Gaps in mental health support, limited access to after-school programs, housing instability, and concerns about safety that are often discussed without us in the room. At the same time, we are also full of ideas, leaderships, and lived experiences that can help shape better solutions. Tonight, you will hear directly from those candidates on those issues. Throughout the entire program, I will be helping to move us along through each question, along with our designated timekeeper, who will be signaling when candidates are approaching the end of their time. It is very important that candidates respect those time limits so that we can hear from everyone and cover all the issues we planned. We know that these topics are complex, and we appreciate that candidates will have a lot to say, but part of accountability is being able to communicate clearly and stay within shared time so that every issue and every voice in this room is heard. As you listen tonight, I encourage you to think not just about what is being said, but about what it would look like if young people were actually included in shaping these decisions from the beginning, not just responding or reacting to them after the fact. The forum includes questions on youth homelessness, mental health, out-of-school time programs, career readiness, public safety, budget priorities, youth governance, and LGBTQ+ youth. These are not separate issues for people, they are also connected to whether we can thrive in the city. We are excited to begin, and we appreciate everyone being here to engage in this conversation. With that, I'll pass it back to Rachel for forum instructions and to introduce our first panel of candidates.
So here's how the forum will work. Each candidate will be asked one initial question, and they will have 90 seconds to respond. We will also include a set of 5 shorter response questions where candidates will have 60 seconds to answer each. At the end of those questions, we will move into a 10-minute lightning round where responses will be even more concise and fast-paced. The at-large seat is a unique, important role on the council because these are members elected to represent the entire district across all 8 wards and are responsible for shaping policies that impact every young person, every family, and every neighborhood in this city. At-large council members help us determine how we invest in youth homelessness prevention, how we expand access to mental health care, or whether out-of-school time programs are truly accessible, how we build pathways to economic opportunity. These are decisions that shape whether systems work together. With that, it is my honor to introduce the at-large candidates that are joining us this evening. Kevin Shavis. Deanna Forster. Greg Jackson. Candace Tiana Nelson. Oye Owalewa. Lisa Raymond. And Alyssa Silverman. Thank you. We appreciate each of these candidates for being here and engaging with us and directly with young people, providers, and community members. So we will now begin with our first questions for our at-large candidates. Question number 1. Please introduce yourself and share your top 3 policy, budget, or governance priorities to improve the lives, safety, and well-being of district youth and young adults. I will start with Lisa.
All right, good evening, everyone. How are you all? Nice to see you. I'm Lisa Raymond, and I'm running for the DC Council at-large seat. This is for the Democratic nomination, and one of the reasons that I'm doing that is that I want to make sure that our youth can live healthy, safe lives where they have access to careers, to pathways, and to live the best lives that they can be. And I think we all know that we are not doing as well as we should as a city. So I have spent a lot of my career working alongside youth, advocating for them. I was one of the original team members of Cesar Chavez Public Charter Schools. I actually worked as deputy director for DC Action when it was called DC Action for Children. And also, I currently work at Covenant House, Greater Washington, where I raise money to make sure that our homeless youth have access to the housing and the services that they need to be successful. There are a lot of issues that I care about. I know some that particularly affect youth are supporting, in terms of violence, for me, I've worked on violence against women. Of course, I care about our young men, but I also know that, and we'll talk about this more, that young women have particular challenges in terms of sexual assault, intimate partner violence, that the statistics in this city are very concerning. Child care is another that I'm very focused on, and also making sure that all of our students have access to the special education services that they need. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm a little loud. Good evening. Much better. I'm Greg Jackson. I'm running for DC Council at Large because right now we need a council that's less talk and more action. DC now has the highest unemployment of any major city in the country. We are in a housing crisis, a public safety crisis. We've also become the most gentrified city in the country, and that's why I'm running. My entry into public service, unfortunately, came from circumstance. April of 2013, in the Shaw neighborhood, I was shot by a stray bullet that almost cost me my life. And I spent 10 years since then focused on the epidemic of gun violence. I worked in the mayor's office for 2 years, DC government for 5, and spent the last 2 years in the White House serving as President Biden's advisor on all things gun violence prevention. where we actually moved forward 54 executive actions, moved $242 billion into violence prevention efforts, and ultimately reduced homicides across the country by 49%. My top 3 priorities, number 1 is public safety. Gun violence is still the #1 cause of death for youth in America, for black men, and even pregnant women. And just last night, we had a shooting in Laurel, Maryland, where my cousin was there for a Cinco de Mayo event. Unfortunately, is okay, but we know this is a constant threat. Number 2 is I'm focused on how do we address affordability with a focus on cost of living. We know that the biggest thing that's suffocating too many of our pocketbooks are our inability to pay rent or to pay mortgage. And then lastly, I'm really focused on providing more resources for our youth, both education and recreation. I worked at DPR, so I know how important that is, and I'm out of time. But remember me, Greg Jackson, less talk, more action. Thank you.
Candace? Yes, Candace, all right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Candace Tiana Nelson. I'm a Democrat, so I'm running in the Democratic primary. And I'm running because I want people to feel seen, heard, and valued. I know that I don't feel that way now. I didn't feel that way growing up. I grew up in Winchester, Virginia, so that should explain 2 things to you. The twang that you might hear from time to time when I talk, but also the advocate that you see before you today. For 20 years, I've been fighting for DC residents. I've been serving as an ANC commissioner. I've worked in all 3 branches of the government. I worked at 5 different government agencies. I've worked for Councilmember Janice Lewis-George as her chief of staff. I also worked for Brian Schwab. I ran his transition. And I've worked at 5 different government agencies that I mentioned that, like Lord mercy, right? So the other thing that I want to say, especially as it pertains to youth, is that I believe that a district that thrives is one that focuses on strong foundations. That's education, healthcare, and housing, and ensuring that they are affordable, accessible, and of quality. Because if our education is strong, if our housing is stable, and our healthcare is preventative, everyone wins. And that gives youth a fighting chance and something to look forward into the future. So, one of the things I'd love to see is a youth advisory council or a youth council, one that is separate from everything else and just works lock and step with the council on policies so that you, the youth, can work with the council on policies that impact and affect you every day. Thank you. Candace can, DC can, yes we can. All right?
Deanna?
You said my name right, thank you. I'm Deanna Forster. I'm a proud DC native, and I gotta tell you, I have been to a lot of debates, but I was so excited to come here tonight. When I was 18 years old and I graduated from Wilson Senior High School, I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was told by my college counselor that college was not for me. So I'm so grateful to see a room of young people that were not making decisions I was making when I was your age. But I also decided to run for office because when the counselor told me that college wasn't for me, I accepted for myself, but I decided I would never accept that for my daughters or any other child that enters DC public schools. So I've spent all my life fighting to make sure that schools are more accountable, accessible, and the kids can thrive. I've also worked to ensure that we can live. How many people are from DC? How many people want to stay here in DC? So I've also fought to make sure that we have affordable housing right here in Columbia, on Columbia Road, 14th and Clifton. Even though I am from Southeast, I do come uptown. But I want to make sure that everybody that has lived here all their life, and we have history here, that we can stay here. But I've also worked to make sure that you can get a living wage job. So I've helped raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and ensure that we have paid family medical leave. But I would say my top priority is work that I started almost 20 years ago is community schools legislation. And I'm excited about running for council and serving to actually ensure that DC invests in community schools. Thank you.
Kevin?
All right, thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Chavis. I'm a proud DC native. I'm an attorney, went to Howard University, so right here in Ward 1. Went to Howard University for law school as well. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm glad that DC Action and the coalition organized this forum because we've got to do a better job of listening to you. And I'm speaking to the youth in this room. I worked at the council as a committee director for 4 years up until resigning in order to run for this seat. I work for At-Large Councilmember Anita Bonds. And one thing that I noticed is how the investments in you continue to drop off. For those of you who have parents or grandparents who are from DC, they may tell you all the time about how they had every activity in the world at the rec centers, at schools. Now there are schools that have 0 activities. We've got to change that. We've got to invest more in our youth. We've got a $22 billion budget, and it's unacceptable we don't have more programs for youth. So it starts with investing in out-of-school time. If we invest $30 million in out-of-school time, I believe that would provide programming for every child in the city. We've got to invest in vouchers that will reduce youth homelessness. Only 1 to 1.5 million will have a dramatic impact. So we've got the money to do it, but we need people in office that understand the budget, understand what it takes to do it. I do. I'm an attorney. I've also been a committee director. And I look forward to talking more with you tonight about the issues that are important to you. Thank you.
Alyssa?
Good evening, everyone. So I'm a little different than the other folks up here. Does anyone know why? I heard it. So I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. Anybody here heard of Bernie Sanders? Yeah, I'm a Bernie Sanders independent. Here's why that's important when it comes to voting this year. I'm at the bottom of your ballot. If you're a Democrat, if you're a statehood green, if you're a Republican, if you're a fellow independent like me, my race is the only race on your ballot. So these guys are running in the Democratic primary. I'm an independent. I'm running in what's called the independent special election. All right, enough about that. Who the heck am I? I actually am a little different because from this crowd because I'm a former council member. I've served you before, and here's what I've done. I created the paid family leave program. I increased the wages on the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. I passed the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. Quickly, what I'll do, number one, we gotta make out-of-school time programs free. Free, they're part of the school day, it's an equity issue. Number two, we gotta increase mental health supports for our students. That's what I've heard from you. I see some finger snaps. That idea came from a student. And third, year-round internships. 6 weeks at Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, 6 weeks. We need it all year round. Thank you guys so much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Oye Owolewa. I'm the shadow representative. I'm a neighborhood pharmacist, and I'm really glad to be here. Because when I was your age, I wasn't making the decisions you were. In fact, it was actually a lot worse. You see, one of every 3 kids that are bullied act violently. I was one of those 3, because I was getting picked on. But good people changed my life. Good programs changed my life. The community had my back, and I was able to turn it around. Fast forward here to DC today. We have a budget that took $6 million away from recreation and put it into incarceration for young people. We have a curfew law that's getting voted on that says that people like you shouldn't be in our community at night. We have programs and organizations like Sasha Bruce that has been lied to and divested from that serves people like you. I think that's policy violence. I'm running for council at large to change this violence on the policy level. I want to have 3 things done for young people. Number 1, I want UDC to be tuition free, so you don't have to mortgage your life to get a better education. Number 2, I want to make sure that Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program actually pays you more money, up to living wage. Number 3, I want to make sure organizations like DC Action, Sasha Bruce, and beyond actually get the funding that they deserve because they can reach people that I can't. I want you all to rank me number 1, not because my name is nice, but because of the investment in your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2, and again, questions 2 through 6, you have 60 seconds to answer, okay? Number 2, what role should the government play in creating high-quality after-school enrichment for district public school students? And how would you go about closing gaps in access to out-of-school time programming to advance racial and geographic equity among students and schools. We will start with Kevin.
Well, we've got to make sure that every school, every neighborhood, every child has access to free out-of-school time programming. We have to do that. We know that it would cost, I believe, $30 billion to do that. Now, if we do it a little bit over time, okay, we'll get there. It may not happen all in 1 year, but we've got to start the investment. I give the mayor credit. Over the last 12 years, she has improved the recreation centers. They've been renovated. We've created these brand new facilities. But what good are the brand new buildings if there aren't programming inside? If people don't have anything to do? If you all don't have activities where we put these brand new buildings to use? So we've got these modernized facilities. Now it's time to fund the actual programs that will give our youth, like you in this room, constructive activities, positive things to do, and that will nurture the entire student, all of you, as you go through school, as you learn. We need positive activities.
Deanna?
I think the answer is funded. The district is responsible for funding after-school programs. But what I will say is, as a parent and someone who's relied on scholarships and PTA fees to help me cover aftercare expenses for my children, the difference is I will ensure that the students and the families are determining what after-school programs are in their schools. Not just the ones that get citywide grants and then they're put in your school, but the ones that you all say you want. So I live in Southeast. My daughters go to school in Northwest. They want to play soccer. We spend our time crisscrossing across town. How come we don't have a soccer team in Southeast? So what the difference is, the district should fund it, but you all should tell the district what to fund. And it should not be a cookie cutter approach. It should come from the communities that we serve.
Lisa?
Thank you. So how many parents here who've actually tried to manage this whole out-of-school time process? So the reality is that our school day doesn't work for the majority of working parents because we work until at least 5 o'clock. We work generally 12 months a year, except with a little bit of vacation in there. So we absolutely need more support for all families. I also want to give a shout out for kids count data because I knew that this was an issue, but I didn't realize it was quite as bad. And I saw that 55% of families in DC don't have access to out-of-school time because they can't afford it. So that to me is just important to shine a light on that so that we know what we have to tackle. And we also know that kids who participate in quality out-of-school time actually do better in their academics, with their social emotional learning, and that they are less likely to drop out of high school. So this is absolutely an equity issue, and it's one that I will commit as a council member to tackling.
Greg?
Definitely think the government should do more to invest in out-of-school programming and services. This last budget, we invested $500 million on correctional facilities. We put $128 million into walking trails, right? So we have the resources to invest more in out-of-school and out-of-school programming and services for you. As your council member, that will be a huge priority, is how do we start to invest more in our youth and in people, more than we are in just buildings and facilities. I spent the last 10 years in Anacostia, and all the young kids on my block, we play football in the street. And that's a tragedy. We have to create more resources, more opportunities for our youth to come together and be safe and constructive. Thank you.
Candace?
Yes, so the council has what responsibilities? 2, right? Budget oversight and performance oversight. Performance oversight comes first. And I would support more funding for out-of-school time, and let me tell you how. First, as the candidate who's worked at 5 different government agencies and understands the operations of agencies and overseeing agencies, I can identify the spaces where things aren't working. And I don't believe in funding something that doesn't work. So moving the funding to out-of-school time programs through programs that aren't working. And also ensuring that we're opening up our libraries to last longer, our rec centers to last longer, shifting programs, shifting money from programs that aren't working to ensure that we're extending our time at our rec centers, our libraries, and our out-of-school time programs. Thank you.
Okay.
That $6 million that went to incarcerating young people, that $90 million extra that went to police at a time they're facing a shortage, should be going into programming. Recreation is public safety. Education is public safety. But at the same time, all of our problems is not going to be solved by a dollar sign. We have to actually spend time. For the past 12 years, I've been volunteering in classrooms, getting kids interested in becoming scientists. This career exposure is critical, because every year somebody spends in college reduces their risk of committing a violent offense by 10%. That is tangible. That is data. And we need council members that depend on data and not on poll signs and talking points on the news. Right now, we have too much legislation that only works for 8 months and then it gets defunded next year because it's not working. What happened to all the organizations that do good work that have to fight for a couple of dollars? That's not fair. Because at the end of the day, that's really selling you out to corporate millionaires that don't think about you first.
Melissa?
I told you guys that one of my top 3 things was making out of school time programming free. So I've already covered this terrain. What I'd say is the council's role, I agree with everyone up here, it's to fund it. We gotta fund it. But then there's 2 other important things the council needs to do. Listen to our young people. Listen to you and what you want that. Who's on TikTok in this room? Okay? And who's on Instagram in this room? And who needs to figure out how to use Photoshop and do video editing and sound? Those are the types of out-of-school time programs, in addition to the things Oye talked about, career exposure, but we want to make sure the programs are of interest to our young people. And I think communication is one of the most valuable things that we can expose and teach our young people to. And then the final thing is oversight, making sure that the programs work.
Thank you. The third question is, what policies and investments would you champion to expand meaningful career readiness pathways to create long-term economic mobility for district youth, particularly for young Black and brown job seekers who may have barriers to employment? I will start with, you have the microphone.
When I worked at the council, I was the committee director for the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. So we had DOES. DOES is our agency that has all the workforce development programming. But the sad thing is that we don't fund many workforce development programs with local money. We have the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. We now have the Infrastructure Academy. But really, those are the 2 main programs. Now we have the Career Ready program for middle schoolers. We've got to expand that. The problem with that program, even though it's had great results, the waiting list is so long that it's almost impossible for students to join, for young people like you to join. So we've got to invest more local dollars in workforce investment, in workforce development programming. But beyond that, we need performance-based contracting so that the service providers that work, that get good results, are the ones that get the funding. We have not gotten great results from our workforce development program. If I'm elected, I'll turn to performance-based, so the ones that get you employed, that get you trained, are the employers that get our local money.
Deanna?
So as I graduated from high school, they said college wasn't for me. The first thing I did is I went to cosmetology school, which I could do some hair. But I also realized, and before I graduated, Chamber, you all too young to remember this, but used to be able to go to college and college school for free. You can go to high school half the day, and then you can go to college and college school the other half of the day. We used to have trade schools here in DC. So some of you all may know, I used to be the president of the Metro Washington Labor Council. I ran pre-apprenticeship programs that exposed young people, returning citizens, and people that were hard to employ to opportunities outside of college to get into a apprenticeship program. So I would invest in apprenticeship programs.
Thank you. Greg? We'll just go down the line for this question.
Well, similar to my comrades here, definitely believe in investing in more workforce readiness programs. I will say though, we're missing a big part of what workforce readiness looks like, and that's looking to the future. Right now, we have to invest more in the programs that prepare us for the jobs of tomorrow. Raise your hand if you use AI. See, that's the problem. All of y'all should be using it right now. This is literally the future. And right now, our schools are not equipping our youth. Our out-of-school programs are not equipping our youth. Even our recreational programs are not equipping our youth. So that's a major part of my education platform. My first job was a dishwasher, but for many of you, your first jobs will be very, very different. But we need to start preparing you now for that future. Thank you. Oh, I got more time. 15 more seconds. Oh, also, the government should help us build more public-private partnerships too. It's not just what the government can pay for, but how do we get more of the businesses and corporations and even nonprofits to provide more resources and opportunities for you. And that's what council can also help with, and is a huge priority of mine. Now I'm out of time for real. All right, good, thanks.
All right. Can I go? All right, ready, set, go. So we've talked a little bit about DOES. I actually worked at the Department of Employment Services, and the DC Infrastructure Academy is one in which we definitely need to beef up that program. It is working. They especially partnering with my first job when I came to the District of Columbia, PEPCO. It is definitely working and really providing a career ladder there. Apprenticeship programs, yes. But also I think we need to have public-private partnerships with our businesses. You know, have our small and local businesses really start to partner through the Summer Youth Employment Program. The Summer Youth Employment Program we should be investing in to ensure that the youth are making at a minimum wage. You know, make it worth it. But the more partnerships that we have with our local small businesses, the more job opportunities you get. And then the more, you know, information you get, the more experience you get to build up your resumes, and then do what you want to do, either vocational education, college, whatever you want to do. Thank you. Right on time.
One thing the District of Columbia is really good at doing is giving $1 billion to billionaires, right? Josh Harris from the Commanders got $1 billion. Ted Leonsis got $500 million. And with those billions of dollars, they have something called a CBA, a Community Benefits Agreement. I believe there should be a youth commitment in those CBAs, whether hiring people, giving internships and beyond, because that is your money, that is your parents' money. That's not free bread, so it should come back to you. Number two, we need to create a more proactive government, one that doesn't believe in always clean up a mess, but preventing a mess. And our organizations within the government are very siloed. So if they start communicating with each other, working with each other, we can save more money. And with that money, we can bring it back to you and your family. Whether it's pipeline into careers, getting youth jobs, or even send you across the country or not across the world to have those experiences and come back and make the district better. Right now, DC is kind of operating in a bubble, but when you guys become more worldly, we can pop that bubble, bring good experience back to DC, and make our district better.
So one of the things that we focus on at Covenant House is meeting our youth where they are. Some of them show up and they're in college and they just need a safe place to live. Some of them need some time and some mental health supports and they're not ready to go to work. And others just they don't need just a job, they need a career. And I think that's what we need to focus on for all of you, is to really think about how do we start in middle school exposing you to careers, but then by the time you get to high school, you're really leaning in and you're getting those paid apprenticeships and you're deciding. You all have an opportunity if you want to go to college. That's something everyone should not have an opportunity to do. But not all youth want to do that, and they want to become a nursing assistant. They want to work in the tech field, and they can get jobs that pay them living wages right away. So we need to do that, really meet our youth where they are, and we need to have the programs that help you do what meet your dreams. Thank you.
Great, I'm Alyssa Silverman again. Who in the audience wants to own a house when they grow up? Who wants to own a car? Okay, we spend millions and millions of dollars in the district on workforce programs that don't end up with people getting jobs, don't end up with people being able to buy a car, don't end up with people being able to buy a house. We need to change that. And here's my idea on how to do that. We need to work with our employers. We have a lot of good paying jobs in healthcare. Who has ever been to a hospital in the district? There's a lot of people that work there with good paying jobs. We need to work with Georgetown, Washington Hospital Center, and I agree with something I believe Oye said, make nursing courses free. We need nurses. What we need to do is gear our workforce development toward the jobs that are here that pay well. We don't do that right now.
Okay, question number 4. Question number 4, and this one's pretty lengthy, okay? So young people ages 18 through 24 experience the highest rates of housing insecurity, with many having already endured homelessness as unaccompanied minors. They face distinct barriers to achieve stable housing, including limited income, gaps in supportive services, and challenges navigating adult systems. Parenting youth and LGBTQ+ youth are especially impacted, often encountering additional obstacles such as family rejection, discrimination, and increased caregiving responsibilities. If elected, what specific changes would you prioritize to reduce and ultimately prevent youth homelessness in DC? In a constrained budget environment, how would you measure success, and what role do you believe the council should play in ensuring LGBTQ+ youth, parenting youth, and Black and brown young people have access to not just shelter, but long-term housing stability and opportunity?
You want me to start?
Young people ages 18 to 24 experience the highest rates of housing insecurity in the district, many having already endured homelessness as unaccompanied minors. They face distinct barriers to achieving housing stability, limited income, gaps in supportive services, challenges navigating adult system. Parenting youth and LGBTQ+ youth are especially impacted for various reasons: family rejection, discrimination, increased caregiving responsibilities. If you are elected, what specific changes would you prioritize to reduce and ultimately prevent youth homelessness in DC? In a constrained budget environment, how would you measure success? And what role do you believe the council should play in ensuring that LGBTQ+ youth, parenting youth, and Black and brown young people have access to not just shelter, but housing stability and opportunity?
Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to cover all of that, but I'm going to do my best, and you all can fill in the rest. So, we all know that certainly our youth who are facing housing insecurity are living in it. This is a very complicated city. We have some of the highest housing costs in our entire nation. You have a lot of youth who are coming from families who are already housing insecure, some of them who are kicked out of their homes for a variety of reasons, and some who try to couch surf and then eventually come to either Sasha Bruce or to Covenant House or to many of our other wonderful programs to get that security and stability. So I also know, just also to give another shout out to Sasha Bruce for pregnant and parenting youth. They have an incredible program, Elias Cradle, that provides specific support for those families. So I think we need more of that. We need specialized support for LGBTQ+ youth, because they also want to feel safe and be in an environment that works for them. and all youth need to be safe. And as a council member, this is an issue that's very close to my heart. It's what I do every day right now, and what I will continue to focus on. Again, Lisa Raymond, thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa?
I think we need to start with our schools. And we need what we have put in place, but it hasn't worked, which is an early warning system for our students to flag. Are they having, problems at home? Are they having trouble figuring out their identity? Do they have, housing and food insecurity at home? For me, I think we need to do much more, starting at the school level, to identify these issues and start with resources early, in order to give our young people the mental health supports they need, and sometimes it is the housing supports they need. It is a big question, I have to say, but I think we start way too late helping people, giving them the supports they need, identifying the issues before it becomes too late.
Thank you. Back to Oye.
I think when the going gets tough, too often our government puts the burden on working people. We could talk about the LGBTQ plus youth and how SMILE supports that demographic, but next thing you know, we could talk about the budget cuts. Or as my friend Lisa mentioned about Sasha Bruce, how the drop-in center is now threatened. And you're talking about housing security, young people, places that they can trust. Housing usually begins their process of mental health, processing their family issues, processing their comeback. And to focus on another thing when it comes to housing, we also have to address that there's between 10,000 and 15,000 vacant units in DC. With people sleeping outside and that many vacant spaces, this shows a true opportunity to help people out. It's much cheaper to keep somebody in a home than it is to get them back into the home once they're on the streets. And we need to get back into the prevention process, not into the pickup and hopefully resolute process. We need to be more proactive as a city.
Okay. All right. When I was at the Department of Human Services, I served as a legislative coordinator and an operations coordinator as well. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is working on the legislation that did help to set up our prevention in family services right now. And that would be helping the families to identify, to connect, even if it's a family member that's in North Carolina, but making sure that they're connected so that they can go there first as opposed to coming into the continuum of care and being in the housing and shelter care process. And so we were very happy and we were successful with that. Another thing as your council member that I would support is DC Cross Connect. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with that program, but care is coordination. And we have to make sure that our government is coordinated, and DC Cross Connect coordinates CFSA with DHS, and I think that they should also include DCPS in that connection as well. Thank you.
Greg Jackson. One big thing I will say is that DC is just not affordable for too many families. If we were a state, we would be ranked 49th, which means we would be just more affordable than Hawaii. So when we think about our housing crisis, I want to focus on affordability and how do we create more housing opportunities for people to not only rent, but also to own. How do we make sure there's more financing resources for people to purchase homes and have pathways to homes? And also how do we invest more in preserving the homes that we have? When I was in the mayor's office, I also helped lead the effort to shut down DC General. And what we found was that when we create smaller shelters and spaces for families that are experiencing homelessness, we can provide better results by better supporting those families. So that's another major priority for me. How do we create more smaller, family-focused housing? The last thing is that we have to make sure that we are protecting and defending safe spaces for our youth. Last year I testified before Congress, and Senator Josh Hawley there, he called safe spaces for LGBT youth gobbledygook. Literally, that's what he said online. And that's what we're up against. We're up against a Congress and a White House that does not actually appreciate safe spaces. And as your council member, I will defend that as well.
Deanna Forster. I will say this, I am not a politician. I do come from a family of service. My mother was a DC police officer. My mother would, instead of arresting people, she would always bring young people home, give them McDonald's, which we were not allowed to eat, and treat them much better than she treated us. But that's how I was raised. My house has been a home to a number of my daughter's friends, people I've interacted with that have been kicked out of their homes, and I've helped them to try to navigate the foster care system to get placement and all the things. And I'll tell you, it's painful to watch because you see a family that's broken apart. What I would say is what Alyssa said, if there was an intervention at the school that helped someone get wraparound services and helped them identify the support that they needed and navigate them by themselves, then I think that that's the intervention that I would invest in, because I've tried to navigate the foster care system. I've had foster care children, and the hardest thing is this coordination of all the services and supports.
One of the most sad statistics that I've heard is that 1 in 5 of our youth in DC face some type of housing instability. And even though we know that, as a government, we have cut our permanent supportive housing. That is the main program that ends homelessness for youth. It provides permanent housing for people in DC. I believe last year it was cut by over $1 million. We have to restore that funding. That is our main tool to make sure that we end housing instability for youth. We cannot expect for our young people to be successful and be all they can be if they do not have excellent housing options. We can't expect it. We've got to take care of the basic needs first, and housing is number 1 on that list. We also have to make sure that we allow our nonprofits to do the work that they can do. Too often nonprofits have to wait in order to get grants, and then their hands are tied. They can't do the work they need to do because they're waiting for months to get that first payment. We need to release some of the funding early so they can get to work serving our youth.
Thank you. 2 more questions before the lightning round. As a council member, how will you ensure youth voices are not just occasionally heard, but actually listened to and able to influence decisions and lead real change? We will start with Oye this time.
I believe you put in that work before you start running for office. I believe becoming a council member doesn't make you a leader, it just exposes who you are. And for the past 12 years, I've been in your classrooms talking to you about how to become a scientist. I've been working with folks at UDC to explore what it would take to become tuition free. And when people were talking about keeping you guys inside your homes and not on the outside at a certain time, I went to the Teen Spring Jams. I was talking to you guys about what we could do better. A proactive government isn't just about making sound bites on the news. It's about going to you guys before something happens, hearing your side before we speak to the news, because your viewpoints matter. Now, I don't know each and every one of you in this room, but I value each and every one of you in this room. Unlike some of the members on the council that want to keep you from the programs and events that you want to do. I believe that you guys are not tomorrow's leaders, but today's leaders, and giving you the attention is my blueprint and my evidence of just that.
Candace. Yeah, it's on. I've been on the campaign trail, Candace Tiana Nelson. I know sometimes people are reminding you guys of our names. I've been on the campaign trail talking over and over again about creating a youth council. I really want to have a youth council. We could have it set up to where they have ward representatives, they have at-large representatives, and a chairman as well, just like the city council is set up. But it works lock and step with the city council, and it has youth representing leadership and coming on board and really talking about the issues that impact them lock and step, and that is a way that you can amplify your voice. As your council member, I would introduce the legislation to set aside a youth council where we could actually hear from the youth. And of course, yes, we can be out in the community, we can hear, we can have our task force, we can have advisory councils, but I really think that really setting aside and having a youth council is the way to go. where you elect your leadership, you come in and you work lockstep with policy issues that impact you and your lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Greg Jackson. My 9 to 5 right now is running a foundation called the Rocket Foundation. It was created after the murder of hip-hop artist Takeoff from the Migos, and Quavo and family actually assembled this foundation to give away resources to at-risk youth programs. And what we found is that the youth have some of the best ideas on how to address real problems. And so we give out these grants, but we really look at it as a partnership, not just giving dollars to an organization. As your council member, I want to propose creating a similar fund called the Youth Safety Fund, where youth actually come together and decide how resources are spent, and not being seen as just a feedback cycle for the government, but actually a partner in how we make decisions. I think that is crucial, and that's how we address the major problems that we're seeing across the district. Greg Jackson, thank you. Oh, I got more time. You can follow me. You can follow me on Instagram at @Jackson, TikTok Gregory.Jackson Jr. Yes, Greg Jackson. Now we got time.
I was gonna take his time. So, how many of you have been down in the Wilson building to testify? So, it's not easy, right? I will say the kids in my neighborhood, the ones I talk to that hang out on Benning Road, they don't even, they've never been down to the Wilson building, they don't know how laws are made. They come to me and say, Miss Deanna, why is this happening? And I was like, because the law got passed. Like, well, somebody needs to stop that. So here's the thing is, the people that are hurting the most that this district is passing laws that impact their lives are not coming down to the Wilson building. They're struggling to pay their bills right now. So I'm gonna do what I've always done. I live in the hood, I ain't leaving the hood because I can't afford it anywhere else, but I'm actually going to always go to the community. I have an 18-year-old daughter that tells me something every day. What do you think what she tells me? Ma, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm never going to approach a decision that's impacting youth or any group that I'm not directly connected to or have an understanding without hearing from you first.
One thing I think all of us who are adults in this room do is we think we know what's best, and we tell our youth what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what's best for them. I have 2 younger children, 9 and 6, so they're younger than you all, but I know I do it, and I'll be doing it probably when they're 20, 30 years old. My mom still does it to me, both my parents actually. But one thing I can commit to doing as an at-large council member that represents every neighborhood is to have a youth town hall, a youth summit, to partner with groups like DC Action, like the rest of the coalition, and to come to the community and assemble youth to develop ideas. And from those discussions, we can come up with common sense fixes to some of the problems that we see. We cannot do the top-down approach where elected leaders tell you what's best for you. You know, you all know what's best for you. You all know what your generation wants. We need to listen. And as a council member, I commit to my first year having a youth summit town hall in the community.
Hi there, Alyssa Silverman again. I told you earlier I raised the pay for the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. Why do you think I did that? Because participants told me the pay is too low. Especially for the youngest, 14 and 15-year-olds. So I listened to them. It's one thing to listen, it's another thing to implement the ideas that you've been told. So when I was told, look, why should I do MBSYEP? Because I'm not getting paid enough to do it, I took that seriously. We changed, and it was costly. It was costly. I had to choose. So one thing we have to do up here is choose. I couldn't fund something else because I decided, you know what, the young people are right. We got to put the money in to make work pay. That's all the time I have. And I have to say, I think I am supposed to be participating in another forum right now. So I think this is my last answer. I'm sorry, everyone. I committed to another forum that started at 6:30. So thank you guys very much. Alyssa Silverman.
think we've got, that's okay. So I truly believe that our policies are better when our youth are involved, and I really mean that, and I've seen it up close. Our youth, you all know what you need, and you're very clear about speaking about it. It's also really good for you to engage in that process. It helps you become leaders, and it gives you your voice. I was Ward 6 member and president of the State Board of Education, and we actually had two, and there are still two student members. And I think that's a great thing to continue. I love Candace's idea of having a council and doing something similar at the council. When I also worked for the council as senior education advisor to the previous council chairman, Kwame Brown, and my favorite thing, to be honest, was when our students would come and meet. They sometimes line the halls when they had really important issues they wanted to talk about. Their testimony was really powerful, and as a council member, I would continue to engage our youth, whether it's in a formal capacity, like as council members, and also engaging them in community forums. Thank you. Lisa Raymond.
Okay, last question for the lightning round. DC revenues have not been keeping pace with inflation-driven costs or the scale of need in the city, including to meet the needs of district youth, such as needed investments in mental health, out-of-school time opportunities, school maintenance, preventative public safety strategies, and more. Do you support tax reform for the purpose of raising more revenue for the city? If so, what specific revenue raiser tax changes would you support, and are there any that you would champion? I will start with Deanna.
I would say the first is in looking at how I think we all talked about this, is looking how we're spending our money. So we invest and give a lot of money to programs that are not working and serving our youth. So we need to first look at the ways that we're spending, and they continuously get funded and they're not delivering results. And that these are the after-school programs that are not serving our youth, but these are all other service programs. At the same time, we have a lot of corporations that come to the District of Columbia. We beg them to come because we want a retail option, and they do not pay their fair share of taxes. And they're not accountable to district elections. And guess what? They will not come to Ward 7 and 8 because we don't have a grocery store in Ward 7 and 8. Oh, okay. He was like this. I mean, okay. Those would be the priority is one, and closing tax loopholes. So making sure that people are making a lot of money off of DC while we're here struggling, are giving us a little bit more so we can make our ends meet.
Thank you. Yes.
One thing we can do is, when we go through the budget, we can eliminate some of the long-term vacant positions. In DC, we fund our positions in the government over 3 or 4 years. And many agencies keep certain positions vacant every year, but we have to fund that in the budget. So I would go through year one and work with the other council members and the mayor to eliminate some of the positions that have been vacant for years. The other thing we need to explore, and I know there's some people that won't like this, but a business activity tax on the out-of-state corporations that make over $2 million a year. They're not in DC, but they don't have to pay a tax. Small businesses pay the tax. Other entrepreneurs pay the tax, but not the largest corporations. We can't be afraid to say that. That's a tax that we could pursue, and that's something I'd be open to looking at if elected.
Great.
All right, I think DC has to have a major philosophy change. We've always looked at revenue as either taxing or cutting programs. We haven't thought about how do we generate more revenue. And that's a huge thing that I want to prioritize and push as part of council. Right now, we're not doing a good enough job supporting our small businesses. We had 92 restaurants shut down last year. That was a record, right? And at a time where we have the highest unemployment of any major city in the country, we can't afford to lose restaurants and businesses, which we know means losing jobs. So I want to make sure we support our revenue-generating institutions, like our restaurants, like our small businesses. We also have to do a better job at taking advantage of federal resources. Now, we know it's crazy there now with Trump, but when I was there in the White House, we did not see Washington come in and pursue dollars the way Baltimore was. And Baltimore was able to get nearly double the resources for public safety than DC did because they were hungry and they pursued those dollars. The other big thing that I want to focus on is, again, public safety, because for every homicide, the city actually loses $2 million. So another way that we can actually generate revenue is by investing in preventing losses like those from gun violence. That's what I'll focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. For me, when it comes to raising our taxes for DC residents, I would like for that to be a last resort. But in looking at a BAT, or business activity tax, I have said that I would consider that to look to see where we could do that, but not in having an unintended consequence of hurting our small businesses. So approaching it, making sure we're well informed on how we do it, but taking that back 2%, 5%, and then taking that money and then helping it for like child care subsidies or other areas where we can use assistance. Another thing I would do is with real estate tax. I think it would be very interesting to take our real estate tax from our new sales and then see if we could use that for a small landlord renovation fund. A lot of our small landlords are having difficulty in making sure that their homes are modernized for their tenants and being able to maybe shift some of that funds over there and help to have safe housing by supporting our small landlords in that way. So 2 things I've been thinking about, BAT and a small landlord tax fund.
I think we owe it to young people and families who've been in DC for generations the support that they need, especially in our most challenging times. If it means that we all have to sacrifice a little bit more so that you guys have a better future, I think it's worth it. When it comes to tax reform, I do believe we can raise our AGI by the floor to 7.5. That increases it $30 million for DC. That would pay for making UDC tuition free. But I also believe we need to audit the entire budget. And if we save 5 to 10% spending on our budget, on our DCPS system and DCPCS system, that would be $200 million. That covers everything. Mental health support in schools, young people taking buses for free, making sure we all have programs in our schools, in our recreation centers. That's worth it. Because investing in you right now prevents us from incarcerating some of you in the future. And I'd rather you guys be in college than in prison.
Lisa Raymond, I agree with a lot of what my colleagues have said here, which is that I think there is definitely opportunity to cut and to save money in the budget. I also think that we have to be careful about imposing new taxes. I would want to see a real clear analysis of that. The reality is that whoever is elected from this group, and I hope that will be me, won't be taking office until next January. So we're going to have a whole new budget that we're focused on and new information. I will also say that I think we need to invest in things that will improve our economy and will make our city more attractive so people can stay here, grow their families, and more people will come in. Things like childcare, making sure that it's affordable and it's in places where families need it. Having housing that is affordable so that we can attract people to come here and want to stay and work in our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. You can keep the microphone. So the last 3 seconds, 3 questions are lightning round questions. 2 of the 3 are simply yes or no, and then 1, maybe 1 to 2 sentences, okay? And we will just go down the row. Number 1, what 2 to 3 mental health services will you champion for district teens, students, and young adults?
This is a sentence, or? Okay. Connection to mental health services at school, and I also think we need our own facility for inpatient psychiatric services in DC for DC youth, so they don't have to get sent thousands of miles away.
We need peer mentorships in schools, we need career pathways, and we also need to make sure that our insurance is paid for our mental health support so we're not coming out of pocket and putting family in financial jeopardy.
mental health supports for our students and our teachers, homeless service coordinators back in all of DCPS schools. And just to actually support universal free food and pushing that, because I know when you're hungry it's hard to learn. And so I'd like to push universal free foods beyond our community eligibility program schools. Thank you.
When I was in the White House, we pushed $2 billion out for youth mental health professionals in schools. DC did not use that money to put those folks in schools. So one major thing I would focus on is making sure we have school-based mental health professionals. Second, when we passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, we created 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. I would work to make sure that we invest in that, to make sure those with languages or special needs have access to the 988 Crisis Lifeline. And then lastly, we need to create more mental health therapeutic supports for those who've experienced trauma from loss of violence or other traumatic events.
Consistently we said is making sure there's mental health support in schools. I would say as we go up in the grade, in middle school and high school, we need more resources for mental health support. As a parent, I've seen the need that children need, that support navigating classes, social emotional relationships, but also in our community. I live in Southeast. We very few therapists, family specialists in Southeast, and we need the whole support for the entire family, not just for the student, right? Because you all need to know how to have healthy relationships with your families as well.
I would say every school, regardless of enrollment, should have baseline funding. We use low enrollment to justify not having mental health practitioners in some of our schools. If I'm elected, I will fight very hard to make sure that no matter the enrollment, there's a counselor, there's a nurse, and there's a mental health professional in every school, in every neighborhood, regardless of enrollment. And then number two, we have to make sure that we're empowering nonprofits who are already doing this work. There are a lot of people, you know a lot of them, that are helping people cope with trauma, helping our youth get through things that have happened to them. We need to fund those nonprofits, make it easier for them to get grant funding.
The mic, because we're gonna go down the opposite direction. So these are yes or no questions, okay? Do you support raising wages for youth participating in the Marion Berry Summer Youth Employment Programming and ensuring fair wages for youth across all publicly funded employment programs?
100% yes.
I did with the bill that Alyssa Silver.
Yeah.
I did, and I will continue to do it.
Yes, as long as we don't cut slots.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you can keep the mic and we're gonna go back this way. Do you oppose youth curfews?
No.
Yes, I oppose youth curfews.
Yes.
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 No.
Lastly, would you support extending Department of Parks and Recreation site hours into late nights on weekends, even if it requires a monetary commitment or reducing daytime hours to stay within the budget? Yeah. Well, yes or no? Yes. Would you support extending Department of Parks and Recreation site hours into late nights on weekends, even if it requires a monetary commitment or reducing daytime hours to stay within budget?
Yes.
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 Thank you so much to the candidates. Those are all the questions that we have for the at-large candidates. And we'll be transitioning to their roles in just a second. But thank you all so much for being here.
All right, good evening again, and thank you for continuing to stay engaged as we move into the next section of our forum. We are now turning to the Ward 1 candidates for the DC Council. Ward 1 is a diverse, vibrant part of district, home to a wide range of families, young people, small businesses, and community institutions. The decisions made by the Ward 1 council member have a direct impact on schools, housing stability, access to mental health supports, youth employment opportunities, and the strength of neighborhood-based programs that young people rely on every day. While Ward 1 represents a specific geographic area, the issues we are discussing tonight are deeply interconnected across the entire city, and the Ward 1 council member plays a critical role in shaping not only local investments, but also broader district-wide policy decisions. As with the at-large candidates, we'll be asking a series of questions, across key issue areas. Each candidate will be asked one initial question and will have 90 seconds to respond. We will also include a set of 4 short response questions where candidates will have 1 minute to answer each. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Ward 1 candidates joining us this evening. Terry Lynch. Aparna Raj. Jackie Reyes Yanes. Miguel Trindade Duramo. And lastly, Rashida Brown. We appreciate each of them for being here and participating in this important conversation with young people, providers, and community members. We will now move on to our first question for the Ward 1 candidate. Please introduce yourself and share your top 3 policy, budget, or governance priorities to improve the lives, safety, and well-being of district youth and young adults. To first start off, we'll have Terry.
Can anybody say youth activities are underfunded? Yes!
The most important issues for me are youth, because they're our future. You're my most important asset is my 2 daughters. No doubt about it. And we're underfunded. From birth right through high school, we're underfunded. So youth, health care, all the way, again, from prenatal care to seniors, we're underfunded on the health that makes the quality of your life what it should be, and safety. I feel personally, we had a 16-year-old shot last week in Mount Pleasant, where the young mother killed. We had the 5-year-old child. Safety. The 3 critical issues are youth, health, and safety, and we're going to make it better. We can do it. I have a track record, 40 years. You can see what I've done. We're going to do it again in Ward 1, and together we can get it done. Thank you.
Hello, buenas tardes. Yes. I am a homegrown Ward 1. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, and yesterday we were at the anniversary of the riots, which I lived through the riots. But my priorities are for everybody to stay here. They can thrive here. They can work here. And how I'm going to do that? Through affordable housing. I want that the people that looks like me, they can stay here, that they can speak my language, right? And childcare. Most of us here, sometimes we have to even take care of our siblings. I want to make sure that everybody has equally childcare and constituent services. That when you call your council member is going to pick up the phone. I believe on teleworking, but not for the council members. You should be able to call me and to pick up to get things done for you. Also, small businesses. Our young people need money. So I want to make sure that you have a work year around. Mil gracias. Jackie Reyes Yanes.
Hi everyone, my name is Aparna Raj. I am a tenant organizer and a union member, and I'm proud to be endorsed by over 30 community organizations, including 17 unions, including the Washington Teachers Union. And my priorities for youth in DC include ending youth homelessness, fighting for free universal child care, and investing in community schools and out-of-school programming. So by ending youth homelessness, first, one of my main priorities is to expand rent stabilization, to keep the cost of rent down, and to invest in housing vouchers and homelessness programs that are specifically targeted to youth, especially Black and brown youth and LGBTQ+ youth, who experience homelessness at a higher rate than other youth. I also want to fund free childcare for every single family in DC, from 3 months to 3 years, with a business activity tax, on large corporations, making sure especially that we're providing youth at an early age with high quality childcare, and that expectant and parenting youth have options for free quality childcare while they're also going to school or to work. And finally, investing in community schools so students and families have housing support, job coaching, and other supports for their lives, and out-of-school programming that is designed and led by teams that help youth have spaces to go to when parents are still at work.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Miguel Trindade Duramo. I'm running for the Ward 1 seat. I am the chairman currently of an ANC 1B, which covers U Street. My campaign priorities all focus around affordability and safe streets and vibrant neighborhoods, but I want to talk about youth specifically this evening. Youth are incredibly important, and they are all too often shut out of the halls of power, right? And shut out of our public spaces. So for me, I want to take two things forward as a council member. One, not breaking the city's promises to our youth, and two, inviting youth into the room where it happens. So for number one, not breaking our promises to our youth. Every school in DC is a promise to our youth. So if you go to Cardozo, and the air conditioning doesn't work, or it works too much, and you can't study, you can't learn, you're wearing 3 coats through the winter, that's a broken promise to our youth, okay? When we say that we're gonna pay early childhood educators so that we have functioning pre-K for everyone in DC, but then we cut the budget 2 years later, that's a broken promise to our youth. And when we say you should feel free to go around DC, we're gonna let you ride Lime bikes and Capital Bike Share, but then we tell you you're not allowed to be out after 8 p.m., you're not allowed to go to Navy Yard, you're not welcome on U Street. That's a broken promise to our youth. All those things need to end.
Hello, my name is Rashida Brown, and I am a over 20-year DC resident, Ward 1 resident. I am a 10-year advisory neighborhood commissioner, and I'm a Bison, Howard University School of Social Work. I graduated, and I started serving in the very community that educated and invested in me. My vision for the ward is to ensure an inclusive Ward 1 where everyone belongs and can afford, no matter their income or walk of life. My whole campaign platform is built around belonging and inclusivity. And right now, our youth are going through a lot. My priorities for the ward is to increase affordable housing, affordable childcare, but also ensure that we protect our immigrant neighbors from ICE and federal agents, and protect our residents from what is going right now within our federal overreach. But for our youth, 3 priorities that I would like to achieve is to ensure that we have year-round programming with fair wages for our youth and career pathways program initiatives, and also to ensure that we have independent benefits access for our youth who are under age 18, particularly those that are transitioning out of youth and they go out into the world. We need to make sure that they're well connected to services, and also youth programming. I do not agree with the youth curfew. Research doesn't support it. We need to be ensuring that our youth have access to safe spaces where they can engage in arts and culture and go-go and fun activities. And I will work alongside our youth as well as our organizations like DC Action and Black Swan Academy to co-create and co-develop policies that work for our youth. Thank you.
All right, that was everybody. Let's move on to the 5 shorter questions. First, what role should the government play in creating high-quality after-school enrichment for district public students? And how would you go about closing gaps in access to out-of-school time programming to advance racial and geographic equity among students and schools? As a bonus question, what was the last educational event that you attended in the ward? We'll start with
The last educational event that I attended in the ward was at Meridian School. It was about a week and a half ago. I participated in their enrollment and re-enrollment program. I think I was having more fun than the kids and the parents. For out of school programming, this is something that is super important to me. As a youth growing up, especially, my dad, I come from a working class family, and when my dad got cancer, my mom had to work 3 to 4 jobs just to pay bills and make sure that I had the necessary things to achieve and be supported in life. Out of school program, I support universal out of school time programming. Matt Furman moved the needle. I want to make sure that every family has access to this and that it's fully funded. But I benefited from programs like that, and that's what allowed me to participate in the world and be able to have the enrichment opportunities to achieve. So youth will be able to have that. I'll fully fund that as your DC council member.
Hello, Miguel again. Love that you talked about your family a little bit there. I was incredibly lucky to be raised by not just my mother, but also my grandparents in the same house. So I had built-in out-of-school time programming, which not everyone is able to enjoy necessarily, right? You have working parents, maybe your grandparents don't live nearby. It's important for us to fill those gaps. Now, we have about, I want to say maybe it's 18,000 of our young people in out-of-school time programming right now, which is less than half of the DCPS student population. It's not enough programming, it's not well coordinated enough. And this question's asking about racial and geographic equity, which raises the interesting point that one of the most common complaints we hear about out-of-school time programming is transportation. People can't get to or from the activity. So we're not even building the wraparound services to make sure that students can go to an out-of-school time program when it does exist.
So we know that out-of-school programming benefits our community in a number of ways, including youth development, public safety, and economic stability, so parents can work while their students are doing programming. The district percentage for students who are involved with out-of-school programming is around 38%, which is triple the national average, which is great, but it is not enough because we do not have enough capacity for how many students want to be able to access after-school and out-of-school time programming. And those have huge disparities along race and east of the river as well. So that is why it is very important for Matt Fruman's Out-of-School Amendment Act to be heard. It is stuck in the committee of the whole, which is why we need a committee on education, specifically focused on education, but it would develop, fund, and implement universal out-of-school programming for every single student in DC. And as far as events in the ward, I volunteer with Bancroft every Monday in elementary school, making sure students can get to school safely, and I've also tutored with North Star Tutoring at Mount Pleasant Library.
I will start because I'm a glamorous grandmother. I go to every Wednesday to my granddaughter's soccer after school DC scores. I have multiple schools around the district, but also the international, the Mary Reed, and I'm becoming very popular in that young age. So yes, after school enrichment programs, I am the beneficiary of that. As a mom, I would have not made it if we didn't have like the DC score that they still do have it. I want to make sure that when we also have food for our children and after school because they're always hungry. And I want to make sure that we have enough funding for that and for parents to make sure that they can take them to school on time so they are ready to learn. So there's a few things that I have in the works on how to engage our young parents and our young children. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to have a robust 12-month-a-year out-of-school program opportunities for everyone. Arts, athletics, academics. I was blessed on the DC State Sports Commission. 22 years too late, but I finally got DCPS to introduce lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, girls field hockey, and other sports that we hadn't had. We should have had 20 years ago. I finally got it. We can do it. You've heard of the Mary Summer Youth Employment Program. Let's add on a summer internship program that does more job skill opportunities outside of the traditional jobs that you may get paid for. The last education event I attended wasn't an education event, it was a girls volleyball game. Bell, I love girls volleyball, I love girls sports. We're here to lift everybody's boat. We need a robust 12-month, a year, arts, academics, and athletic program opportunities that people can enjoy and participate and learn life skills in. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Young people aged 18 to 24 experience the highest rates of housing insecurity, with many having already endured homelessness as accompanying minors. Parenting youth and LGBTQ+ youth are especially impacted, often encountering additional obstacles such as family rejection, discrimination, and increased caregiving responsibilities. In a constrained budget environment, how would you measure success, and what role do you believe the council should play in ensuring LGBTQ+ youth, parenting youth, and Black and brown young people have access to not just shelter, but long-term housing stability and opportunity? Off with Terry.
I'm proud to say I founded a shelter for homeless women in the 1980s. I was the first man to do it. I was so glad I could. Ever since, I've been working with homeless populations, and one of the most at risks are seniors, disabled persons, women, and LGBTQ people. They get sexually abused, they get beaten up, they get robbed, they're at the greatest risk. Those are the communities, look, I'm concerned about all the homeless, those communities we really need to be helping. In Ward 1, we have thousands of vacant properties. There is no reason we can't be moving, if they've been vacant 2 or 3 years, the city to buy them at market rate, get them back into use, and one of the priorities has to be for our at-risk youth and other homeless, such as the mentally ill women who are at the greatest risk of unfortunately being killed just because of who they are. We can't get that. Thank you.
This is very personal to me because by the age of 20, growing up in DC, I had 3 kids, and I was too proud to ask for help because some of we are young, we are maybe sleeping on somebody's couches, but we don't want to say that we're homeless. So I was homeless, been there, done that. At the Latin America Youth Center, they connected me to services. Some of our young people do not know that they are struggling, and they shouldn't be struggling because there's enough resources, but sometimes we don't know. I will make sure that young people, and especially the LGBTQ, we have that access and you know where to get resources. You shouldn't be couch and surfing when we have enough resources. Thank you.
I agree. In the capital of the richest country in the world, we absolutely should not have anyone who is homeless, and especially any youth who are homeless. And I'm a tenant organizer who has been working on affordability, and that is the campaign that I am running. So the first piece is prevention, and that means expanding rent stabilization so we can keep rents down, and increasing our investments in emergency rental assistance so people who can't make ends meet still have assistance to be able to pay their rent and stay in their homes. And making sure we have good union jobs so you can also pay for those basic expenses. On the rapid response piece of it, we need more youth shelter beds. When you talk to parenting youth who are experiencing homelessness, a lot of them say that they are not, the shelters that they are put in, and especially adult shelters, do not prepare them for self-sufficiency or for long-term housing stability. Youth shelters need to also have job development programs, support for finding permanent housing, mental health counseling, especially if you are a queer or trans youth who has been pushed out of your home. Thank you.
I'm going to shout out how well this question was worded. Access not just to shelter, but for long-term housing stability and opportunity, because we know that shelter alone does not end homelessness. In DC, we actually, I think, are on the right track. We understand that the solution to homelessness needs to be housing first. We need to move people off streets, into shelters, and increasingly in DC, we are using non-congregate shelters where people have the dignity of their own space, They're not packed into a room with a lot of other people who make noise, where there's theft, where our pets are not allowed. We're doing some of those right things. We need to keep going. Talking about LGBTQ youth especially, almost half of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ+. That's wild. We have to increase the beds, and we have some wonderful dedicated nonprofits who work on transitional housing for LGBTQ youth. It's not enough to meet demand. I think Heidi Ellis is in the room. She's been doing pioneering work to make that a budget priority for the district government as well.
So 10,000 youth experience home housing insecurity, and that is absolutely unacceptable in one of the wealthiest cities in the nation. As your council member, I will increase affordable housing like I did when I championed Park Norton and Bruce Monroe's redevelopment project. That's 456 housing units, 60% affordable. I brought those housing resources into the ward, but particularly for our youth, as a social worker, as a child welfare social worker, I know that housing insecurity, particularly for our youth aging out in foster care, our LGBTQIA youth, those experiences are far and above and too many. So I will fund programs in the ward like LAYC and Sasha Bruce to make sure that they have, give our youth access to transitional housing and wraparound services and support, but also to make sure that we have intergenerational housing for our youth when they get out of foster care, they can be supported. I championed the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act, the Youth Aging Out provision that allows cities across the nation and the District of Columbia for youth to have housing and affordable health care. Thank you.
All right, our fourth question. Ward 1 now houses the district's new standalone LGBTQ community center, yet many LGBTQ+ young people in DC say they don't feel fully safe or fully seen in schools, homeless shelters, behavioral health services, and other public programs. What concrete steps will you take to make sure LGBTQ+ youth can access public programs and support without fear of discrimination, misgendering, or being forced into unsafe environments, and how will you ensure their voices directly shape the services that designed for them?
So concrete steps that we can be making to support our LGBTQIA youth, we can start right here in the ward. I was a fan of transitional housing, Casa Ruby, that was here in the ward, and I really was sad to see that go. I think that we can be supporting transitional housing for LGBTQIA, in particular our trans youth, to make sure that they have the resources for housing and support that's needed to support them in their needs. And I also want to make sure that there's programming in our schools as well as in our after-school programs, our Department of Recs and Creation Centers, where youth are, so that they can get supported there, as well as making sure that we have mental health providers in every single school. We should be making sure that our youth have those resources to feel supported, for them to have culturally responsive and trauma-informed care, because we know that some youth experience violence in the home and outside of the community. 5 in 1 youth say that they're unsafe in their own communities going to and from school, and we can be able to achieve that together.
Very proud of the new LGBTQ center, the DC Center that opened. A big upgrade in the physical facility that they received last year when they relocated down the street. That space is welcoming to LGBTQ+ youth, but many still aren't. And the key word, I think, for me is proactivity. I was a queer youth. I grew up in the early 2000s, and it was not easy to feel comfortable in spaces at school. I think, times have changed, but not so much, and we still need to be incredibly proactive in conveying to LGBTQ youth or questioning youth that spaces are available to them, that there are pathways to them. DC has been actually stepping back from services like CHAPS, which is the mobile mental health service, which is incredibly important to young people. And we also haven't, what do I want to say? Sorry, what's my time? Shoot. All right, that's the end of it.
There are a number of things that we can be doing working with the Office of Human Rights to make sure that they have the capacity and support that they need to be able to investigate any, anti-discrimination complaints, or make sure that they're prepared in the event that there are specific attacks on queer and trans youth in DC. We need to work with schools in general to make sure that there are protections in place, to make sure that we're able to enforce DC as a sanctuary city, not just for immigrants, but for queer and trans youth as well. We need to, we're seeing attacks on healthcare funding for people, and housing programs for people with HIV/AIDS and for gender-affirming care. And while local funding, it's really hard to substitute federal funding, we need to do as much as we can to make sure that we put funds into those programs. And when 40% of queer and 40% of homeless youth are queer and trans, we need to have investments in targeted programs to help queer and trans youth find housing.
I'm a strong believer that we need to meet people where they are, and that has come from many years. And I had a personal friend, a transgender woman, who used to babysit for me, and people were criticizing me, how can you trust this? And I'm like, it's the taboo in the Latino community. So with me, that stuck out through my mind that people has been mislabeled, and when that happens, then we start creating more issues. So as the director of the Mayor's Office on Community Affairs for the mayor for 5 years, I make sure that people feel safe, creating safe places. That when the DC Center didn't have a home, back in the days, we opened up the Reef Center, and then with a lot of advocacy, we make sure that they have the new space. So with me is making sure that you guys know where is the resources, but also breaking the taboos with parents. And making sure that you don't feel that you're unheard, that you are not seen. So as a council member, I will work hard extra for that not to happen.
I don't care what Trump and MAGA says, I'm all for diversity and inclusion. It's unbelievable that the DC government is not using the tools that it has at hand to push more for our at-risk groups. We talked earlier about how at-risk they are just because they're LGBTQ, because they're elderly, because they're women, because they're disabled. We need to be using our public school tools, our library tools, our public health information to get PSAs out there about diversity, inclusion, and acceptance. We can be doing so much better as a government if we were using our tools, which for some reason we're not. It's not acceptable. Not acceptable. We're going to make things safer for everyone. And it's inclusion, DI, yes, we will make it happen. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the very last question. Young people from across the district seek out opportunities for engagement, enrichment, transit, and commerce in Ward 1. How will you work with Ward 1 communities to ensure all young people who live in and visit Ward 1 feel safe and welcome without being over-policed or targeted by adults and law enforcement? Mr. Officer.
Right now, our youth are being racially profiled and criminalized just for being themselves. Number one, I would like to end youth curfew. I'm not a fan of it. Research doesn't support it. Our youth are being criminalized while they're at public transit, trying to get home. I've seen it and it's heartbreaking, and it needs to stop. So as DC council member, I'll make sure that that's put to an end. I loved how DC council made some steps to make some things possible for our youth and making sure that they have access to safe spaces for youth to go to. But it really starts with our relationship with NPD. We have violence interruption programs that needs to be fully funded. I'll make sure that I do that as DC council member to make sure that we have access to credible messenger and make sure that we're following the model that it's delivered. We need to be making sure that it's implemented at program design and at scale. So as your DC council member, I'll use my oversight authority to make sure that that program is working. And I also will make sure that those programs that we know are preventing crime are fully funded, and to support our youth by giving them the programming in our communities and in our ward. Thank you.
Happy to build on that answer. I also think the district government needs to be more proactive in this space. I also want us to move beyond an age of youth curfew. That requires us to do a little bit of extra work. I haven't seen the mayor, I haven't seen the council doing the work that they said they were going to do during the youth curfew to create more opportunities for youth. They just slapped on the curfew, and then they asked us to renew it, and then they asked us to renew it. I think it's embarrassing. Youth should feel free to come to Ward 1. Recreation centers should not only be limited to people who are enrolled in classes. We need to have open spaces where youth feel comfortable and safe. That also extends to our streets, it extends to our businesses. Ask a young person where they feel comfortable in our society. I live along U Street. So much of it is nightclubs and restaurants only open in the evening. Maybe a few coffee shops where you have to pay to stay, just to sit down. We aren't designing public space to be welcoming of youth, and we're not partnering with our businesses to create spaces and events, nighttime events that are appropriate and welcoming and fun for our youth.
Yeah, every single person in DC deserves to feel safe and be able to live freely without fear, and that absolutely includes our youth. One, I would vote to end the youth curfews. I think if we're going to push back against federal interference, that includes Janine Pirro and Trump's attempts to villainize black and brown youth. And we need to end MPD collaboration with ICE so our immigrant youth feel safe going around as well. We need to create more third spaces for youth. That means using our capital funds to actually repair rec centers, fund them so there's programming that teens design. If you listen to the hearing that happened last week, only a few council members made it to that hearing as teens were talking about what they want to see. And what they want to see is spaces to be able to hang out with each other that feel safe. It's on us to create that because DC has just been cutting the funding for those programs, whether it's out-of-school programming or those third spaces, and we need to really reinvest consistent dollars behind creating those spaces for youth.
I believe being hands-on, right? I believe when we had in Ward 1, when we had a council member that came in and made people accountable, but he also believed in prevention. We had like 3 years that we didn't have gang-related and crew incidents in Ward 1. And that happened because he was very proactive, just like I'm walking to every shooting. I went to the shooting last week, and PD didn't like it, but guess what? That's what they're gonna get with me. I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna be on your faces, because I believe on prevention, but accountability at the same time. Thank you.
I hope the police chief is listening. The police have lost their way. Are you aware of the indictments that are coming? The other police at the top are going to be fired and suspended. Top to bottom, the police department needs reform. Our youth are not our enemies. Our youth are our best assets. They seem to think they're our enemy. No. I want the police retrained, A to Z. And that's what we need. We need a police force that's part of us, not against us. It's not us against them, we're in it together. I differ a little bit with some of my colleagues here in that I do support curfew. I have teenagers. The group would make some poor decisions. I want everyone safe. I don't believe in adult takeovers, teen takeovers. I want to work with our youth, get a 12-month rigorous campaign of activities they can be engaged with. And first and foremost, overhaul the police. We don't need more police, we need better police. Thank you.
All right, give a big round of applause to our candidates. And now let's move on to thank yous with Rachel.
Thank you. Just thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you for the candidates, the Ward 1 candidates and also the at-large candidates, and just a huge shout out for our partners. Again, just want to shout them out. The LGBTQ plus Budget Coalition, Youth Economic Justice Coalition, Out of School Time, Jubilee Housing, Washington Urban Debate League, Black Swan Academy, the DC Arts and Humanities Education Collaborative, the Youth Power and Safety Collective, the staff at DC Action, and the Festival Center for hosting us tonight. Thank you so much. We hope everyone gets home safely. Thank you.